Welcome back, Queen, to another episode of Creatress of Freedom. I'm so happy you're here. If you are new, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's such an honor to have you here and to know that you're taking time out of your day to join me today. So thank you. If you're an OG, oh my gosh, you know I love you. Hello and welcome back, Queen. Welcome back. So nice to be dropping in with you again today. So, the reveal of how it was. Oh my goodness. I've had a lot of people ask me about how my trip was to Australia. And I think I'm still taking some time to integrate, to be honest. But I wanted to jump on and share with you while it's still fresh in my mind because so much happened. Oh my goodness, so much happened and unfolded. And, I'm truly, truly grateful for the experience. And it was such a whirlwind of emotions, and it was a roller coaster of trusting and surrendering and just like getting like download hits and being like, what does this mean? This makes no sense. Like, oh my goodness. It was a lot. It was a lot. So let's back it up. So if you are new here, or maybe you weren't following my IGs, my stories while I was in Australia, I currently live in Greece, and I was just in Australia, which is where I'm from. So I was originally born in Victoria in Australia, and then I moved and spent the last few of my years when I was in Australia in Queensland, and I loved it. It was amazing, and Queensland was just like so beautiful. Anyway, so I've lived in Greece now for 12 months. Like, oh my God, like literally 12 months to the day of me recording this. Holy shit. Oh my gosh. I left on the 12th. So yeah, tomorrow, because today's the 11th of December that I'm recording this. So yeah, literally tomorrow I jumped on my plane and started my incredible journey, and like just wowzers, like that trip to move to Greece was huge, absolutely huge, life changing, life changing. Anyway, that's not what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about my trip back to Australia. So it's really interesting because I had so much resistance to going back to Australia. I actually didn't want to go back to Australia at all. And I thought that the reason that I didn't want to go back was because I knew that going back, I would be spreading my grandfather's ashes. And there was a part of me that felt like I knew that I would have to see my family. And depending on how new you are to this journey, there's heaps of other episodes you can go and listen to with the situation with my family. But I am estranged from my family and have been for, well, next year will be 18 years. And so I have had nothing to do with them. The first interaction that I actually had with them in that 17 years was this time last year when my grandfather passed away. And so I really had anything to do with them. So that was the first interaction. And then my grandmother decided that it was time to spread his ashes. And I had said at the funeral last year that when that time comes to spread his ashes, I will come back for it. I just need some notice, but I will be here for it. So she was very excited to hear that I was going to make the trip back for it. So I thought that originally the resistance that was coming up was based on me not wanting to deal with my family, right? Because I've done so much healing, and I've done, oh my gosh, have I done a lot of healing in that situation with my family. But the thing is that we don't know how healed we are until we are put back in those situations. And once we're put back in those situations, then it's almost like, we go up the spiral, and that same wound still gets triggered, but up here, but now you're seeing it at a different lens, right? And so that was what I thought originally it was. And there was also another reason that I thought that I would have to return back to Australia was to complete my visa situation. And so I thought that I would have to return back to Australia to renew my visa. However, this in itself was a whole fucked up situation. So I was on the understanding that to renew it, I actually needed to go back to Australia to renew it. So I emailed the Greek consulate and spoke directly to them, and they told me that no, I could do it in Australia or I could do it in Greece, wherever I wanted to. So before I knew about the spreading of my grandfather's ashes, I was like, sweet, I don't have to go back to Australia. This is perfect. This suits me really good, because I didn't want to do that big trip. And so that was kind of where I was at, that I wasn't needing to do it. But then uh, my grandma rings and she's like, hey, Dal, like letting you know that we're going to spread the ashes this year. Like originally she had said in October, and I had just returned from the States at that period. And I was like, I can't, like October was literally like 10 days away. I was like, I can't make that work, Nan. And she's like, oh, okay, well, when can you make it work? Anyway, I was like, more November for me. Anyway, luckily we figured it all out, and there was some family drama and some family issues that, trying to keep everybody happy and trying to make sure that it suits everybody, which happens in every family, right? So anyway, we did that. Now, I had in the meantime spoken to my community and had said that I was coming back to Australia and that I thought I might as well host an event while I'm there. And so I said, if anyone's keen to get together. Anyway, a lot of the babes said yes, that would be amazing. So I went ahead and I booked the hotel and booked the conference room and, sorted the catering and all of that. And I messaged my nan and I said, okay, so I haven't booked my flight yet back to Australia. However, I am not available on this date because I have booked an event that I'm hosting for my clients. But any other time, I'll probably be in Australia for, I don't know, maybe 6, maybe 5 weeks. I don't know, but give or take about that. She's like, yep, no worries. That's fine, Dal. Anyway, then she comes back, a week later or whatever. And she's like, oh, you're going to be mad. I'm really sorry. But the only date that we can actually all get together and do it is one of the days that I had booked the event on. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, are you serious? And like, I had women that had booked flights, that had booked accommodation, and anyway, luckily I have an amazing community, and that babes were so understanding. And I was like, I'm really sorry. I have to change the date from the original date that we had set, because we're now spreading my grandfather's ashes. And, they were amazing, and they made it work, which I'm truly grateful for that. So then I had to change the event, right? So this is all happening before I've even got to Australia, just to give you an update. These should have been signs, honestly. These should have been signs of what I was in store for. So that's all good. So then I'm like, oh, I wonder what I will need to bring document-wise for my visa. So it's a week out before I'm about to fly. So I have booked my flight. I'm flying out. We're all good. We're set to go. So I'm about to fly out in a week's time. And I thought I'll just email the Greek consulate and just see if they can send me a list of the documents that I would need, so that I make sure that I've got them with me when I return to Australia. Anyway, someone emails me back and says, actually, you can no longer renew your visa here. You actually need to renew it within Greece. And I was like, well, I'm about to fly out to Greece. Fly out of Greece next week, and potentially would not be returning until after my visa has been approved. Until my visa has expired. And they were like, well, I would highly recommend that you sort a lawyer and get the process started, so that you can leave and, do your family stuff. I was like, oh, okay, radio. So I contact my lawyer. She's not familiar with the type of visa that I need. So then I try and find someone else. So I find another recommendation, and I start going through the process with her. And I'm talking to her about it. And I'm like, I'm flying out next week. Do you think we can get this through? And she's like, yes, it needs to be submitted before you leave the country. So as long as we have all of the documents, like, we should be okay. So my original plan was to go to Australia, leave Australia about the 15th of December, and then fly to California. And I was invited to be with my friend Bree, my beautiful sister Bree, and her family for Christmas. And then we were going to road trip and go up to San Diego for my birthday. And then we were going to turn around and we were going to come back. And then I was going to fly back to Greece, maybe late January. because I didn't want to be in Greece for December and January because it's like the strongest period of their winter. And I experienced winter last year and I was like, I'm not doing that again. So I'd made that decision that I didn't want to be in Greece. So then, I hope you're following. So then that was the original plan. So I phoned the lawyer. She says to me that she is away and she's in Athens at the moment and is not back and couldn't meet me until the Tuesday. And I was like, okay, cool, but I'm flying out on Thursday. So is that going to be enough time? And she's like, I'll send you a list of everything that you need to bring. You bring that and then hopefully we should be okay. I'm like, cool. So I go and I see her. She goes through all of my documents, and these were the same documents that I had originally submitted the previous round, but this time they weren't accepted. She was like, I need more information on this. I need this. Like, I need this. My insurance that I needed had to be with a Greek company, not with an Australian company. So there was a few things that were different compared to the first visa that I applied for. Anyway, so madly like trying to sort all of this shit out before I fly out on the Thursday. And I felt confident that I had given her all of the documents that were required. And she was like, yep, I think we're good to go. And then she was like, when are you coming back? And I said, well, I was planning on not coming back until maybe like the end of Jan. And she was like, well, that's after your visa. And I was like, yeah, it is. And she's like, oh, I need to find out whether that is okay because your visa is going to take up to 3 months to be approved. And I would think that you probably need to be back in the country before your visa expires. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, well, you find out and let me know. She's like, yep, no worries. Anyway, so I'm like, do you think I'm right to get on a plane? She's like, I think you're fine. We can submit this. We're all good. We're good to go. I also had to make her next of kin to say that I gave her permission on my behalf to submit the documents while I was not present. So that was all fine. I head to Australia. The first week, I'm crook as. I am so sick. I'm bedridden sick. I only was supposed to spend a couple of days with my girlfriend in Geelong at her house and then go to Bendigo. But that plan completely got thrown out of the water because I was crook as. I was so sick. And I know that it was not sickness. I know that it was a huge energetic, like releasing and shifting because it was preparing me for what was about to unfold over the next 5 weeks. And so I'm like bedridden, crook as. She's looking after me. Her husband's looking after me. They're giving me food. They're like buying me things and heating up my heat packs. And I literally was just sleeping all day. I was so sick. I actually haven't been that sick for a very long time. I don't often get sick, but when I do get sick, I am usually bedridden. And that's how I know that it's so much deeper than just a sickness. It's like an energetic upgrade. My body is like physically releasing. Like I have hot sweats. I'm like sometimes vomiting. Like it's insane. So I knew that this was preparing me. And I had this like tickle in my throat, like this, my throat was just killing. And so when you know law of the energetics and things like that, you know, your throat chakra is always about where are you not speaking your truth? Where are you not expressing yourself authentically? Where are you blocking things? You know, like it shows you that something needs to shift. And so I was like, oh, I don't know what this is. I don't know why this is like happening. Anyway, that was all good. Finally start to feel better. And she takes me to this crystal shop and we walk in this crystal shop and I start to have a coughing fit in this crystal shop. And the lady says to me, walk around and find yourself a blue stone and place it on your throat. So I'm like, yep, okay. So I walk around and I find this blue lapis lazuli and it's a love heart and I put it on my throat and oh my goodness, I had the biggest coughing fit you have ever imagined. Tears were running down my face. I couldn't control it. It was like as soon as I put the crystal on my throat, I was like completely activated. And it was there to help me and shift through it, obviously, the energy of the crystal, but it was intense and it was a lot. Anyway, the shop assistant comes over and she's doing a little bit of Reiki on me and she passes me some water and she comes up, says, come to the front. And I go to the front and she's like, grabs this crystal book and she's like, I want you to take the crystal book, flick it open to 3 different pages, different times. I'm like, okay. So I open the first one. She's like, yep. She's reading over it. Second one, yep. Third one, she's like, yep. she's like, oh, you're going through a really big spiritual awakening right now. She's like, whatever it is that you're going through and experiencing, you can't run away from this one. And I was like, oh, I know that. Like I said to her, like, I fully believe that and I trust that this is exactly happening for me. And she's like, yeah, you just need to like really surrender to this because this is a big awakening. And I was like, oh, fuck. Great. Great. I mean, I already knew it, but when somebody else confirms it, it's like, shit, here we go. Strap on in. Let's go. So then from there, I go to Bendigo, which is where all my family is. And I go and visit my grandma, and she has been unwell. And so she had been having some testing done, and it turns out like within like the first week of my visit to Bendigo, it turns out that she was diagnosed with an aggressive cancer, and it was spreading quite quickly. And they had put her at stage 4, and it was cancer that's inside the lymph nodes. So she had a PET scan done, and the PET scan showed pretty much that there was cancer in every single lymph node. And so the doctor wanted to start treatment ASAP. And you know what's crazy is like I said to her, had you been feeling unwell, previously? Because how aggressive it is in the stage that it had got to, like they think that it didn't just happen overnight, right? And she said that, when my grandfather was sick, that she was not feeling great and she had some pain. And she went to the doctors, and the doctors just told her that it was stress because of what she was experiencing at home, which, it makes me really sad and really mad, because it's almost like we don't trust, the system doesn't trust that we know our body. And so she just kind of was like, okay, rightio, I guess it's stress, right? But still kept having the symptoms and decided not to push it further. But as a result, that obviously meant that the cancer was spreading a lot quicker. So that was like within the first week of being in Bendigo, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been sick. I have just found out that my beautiful grandma is about to go through some kind of treatment. They were needing to figure out what it looked like. They needed to do other testing to see what kind of cancer it was, all of that stuff. And then, so that was that. And then she was not feeling great either. So she was experiencing vertigo. So she couldn't be on her own. So then I went and stayed a couple of nights. My mum went and stayed a couple of nights. And, we're all just trying to like help out the most that we can. And so in one of my visits over to visit my nana, I was picking up my hire car. And as I arrived, there was no one in the office. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I'm supposed to be here picking up my car. So I ring the office, no one answers. I ring Melbourne, no one answers. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Anyway, then it starts to pour down rain. And I'm like, well, now I'm like literally getting saturated. So I was like, I'll ring my nan and get her to come pick me up. So I ring her and I'm like, hey, Nan, how are you? And she's like, good, Dad. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, not much. I'm like, oh, can you come and pick me up? I'm just down the road. I said I'd walk, but it's pouring rain. So I said, I am here to pick up the car, but I said, there's no one in the office. And she's like, oh, your mum's here. I'll send her down and she can come pick you up. And I was like, great. Okay. Thank you. Amazing. Anyway, so I have not sat in the car with my mother for like 17 years. A very long time, right? And I'm like, oh, how is this going to be? This is going to be awkward. I'm like, just like thrown straight into the deep end, like no easing into, hey, here's your mum. You're going to have a conversation with her. Anyway, so she comes around, she picks me up, and I'm super grateful that she's there picking me up. But, it was a little bit awkward in the car for sure. Like both of us not really sure how to have the conversation. And, it's like lots of talking because it's a little bit awkward and a little bit uncomfortable. Anyway, so we go back to my nan's house. She drops me off, and my mum stays for, like another 4 hours or something. We just were chatting, and it was actually it was really nice. It was really beautiful. I feel like my mum is different when she's not around my dad. But yeah, I definitely think she softens when my dad's not around. But I don't know, maybe she thinks differently. I don't know. But I definitely feel like she's different. And so she's asking me, about my trip and how's Greece and, all of that stuff and what's the situation with my visa. And I'm like, well, I actually don't really fully know. I've given her all the documents, hoping and praying that she can submit it and we're all good to go. And she's like, oh, okay, radio. Anyway, prior to that, I actually if you have listened to one of the episodes where I talked about I had an energy clearing done and I had some healing work that also was done, the healing work was about like womb space. And the healer said to me, if you ever get a chance to have a conversation with your mum about your birth, that would be really helpful for you to understand, like how was the birth, was there anything traumatic, like how was the first early years of your life. And so I actually was able to have this conversation with my mum, which was really amazing because I didn't know if I was going to get that opportunity to have that conversation. So that was really good to be able to have that conversation with her. And then, yeah, so that was kind of like a whirlwind. And then I'm also working with clients and I've got my calls and I'm doing coaching and I'm like planning out my own marketing for my own business. And there was just a lot that was going on. And then my cousin who I was staying with, her grandma got sick and was also in hospital as well. And so we're all trying to like navigate and, I'm helping out with the kids while she goes and visits, her grandma, and, we're tag teaming and in between calls. And it was hectic. She's got 4 kids. I love them dearly. They are like, they're the closest thing that I have to nieces and nephews. I do have nieces and nephews from my siblings, but like I said, I'm estranged from them, so I don't have a relationship with them. But her children are literally like the closest thing to me when it comes to nieces and nephews. But it's chaos, like it's crazy. It's 4 kids, it's mayhem and it's fun mayhem. But oh my gosh, I live on my own. I'm like in my own space, and yeah, it's crazy. But anyway, and then so that was kind of like the first couple of weeks. And so then I decided to upgrade my car because my original plan was to drive to Queensland, which I still have some stuff in a storage unit, and bring all of the stuff from the storage unit back to Bendigo. My cousin's husband had offered for me to leave the stuff in there so I didn't have to pay for storage. And my plan was to bring the stuff that I had and bring it back with me to Australia. Back to Greece. And so I do the 18-hour drive. It's 18 hours from Bendigo right through to Sunshine Coast, which is where I was. And I do this drive, and it was exactly what I needed, just to be on my own, in my own head. I had so much going on with my nan and with being sick and like my visa situation, and like all of this stuff was like a lot, right? And so I drive and I'm quite emotional in the car, and some moments I'm crying and other moments I'm like finding the gratitude. And I needed that. I needed that time on my own in the car. And so I get to Queensland, I check in to my hotel, and it was almost like my nervous system took a big exhale. And I was like, oh, this feels good. I was like, oh, I haven't felt this for quite a while. Wowzers. Could I move back here? And I was like, whoa, where has this come from? Like 1 minute, like 3 weeks ago, I had severe resistance to coming to Australia. And now all of a sudden I'm like, maybe I want to move back here. This feels good. And so then I go and I do all of the things that I love doing. I book my float tank. I have my kahuna massage. I go and have a sauna. I walk along the beach every single morning and every sunset. I go to my favorite cafes. I go to my favorite crystal shops. Like I know where everything is. I know exactly how to get them. Like there's just a sense of ease while I'm there. And I was like, wow, I didn't think that I would ever want to come back to Australia. Like this has blown my mind. It still blows my mind that I still like have that thought. And I was like, this is insane. So I go to my storage bay next day. I spent a week in Queensland. So I go to my storage bay and I have this like download, like I'm going through the stuff and I'm like, okay, what am I going to take? What am I going to take back? I was not going to be able to fit all of it in the car that I hired. So I was like, well, there's no point in me taking half of it back to Bendigo and then leaving half here. Like I might as well just not take up my cousin's husband's shed and just leave it in storage, right? And as I'm like going through the stuff, because I needed some stuff for the event that I was also hosting, and I also was like, oh, I want to take some stuff back to Greece with me. I got this like download that came through, and it was like, do not take the stuff, leave the stuff here. And I was like, what, like what the hell? Are you serious? And this download was so strong. It was like someone whispered in my ear, do not take your stuff. And I've learned to trust that, even though it never makes any sense. And I was like, I have just paid to upgrade my car. I have just driven up here 18 hours. I also have to drive 18 hours back. And now you're telling me that I don't need to not to take any of this stuff. I was like, I literally could have flown. I could have flown. It would have been cheaper. It would have been less time. And I'm just like, this is the thing with the intuition, right? Your intuition, it just knows, and we have to learn to trust it when it doesn't make sense. Like none of that makes sense, right? None of it. The plan and the vision that I had for myself of going to Queensland was the rug was completely being swept out from under me. And it had a different idea than what I had. So I was like, okay, I'm not supposed to take this stuff. This is not the plan, but okay. Anyway, in the interim of all of that, I lock the fucking keys inside the storage bay, and I get down to the car and I'm like, oh my God, I've just locked the keys inside the storage unit. And I'm like, even if I wanted to get stuff out of there now, I can't. And there's no spare key. So the only way now that I can open that storage unit is to bolt cut the lock and put a new one on. So I was like, well, there's no point in doing that now. Like, I clearly am not supposed to take anything out of it. And like, that is very uncommon behavior for me, like to do something like that. So I trust that I was obviously not supposed to go back in that storage unit for whatever reason. It's fine, right? Locked the keys in for whatever reason. Anyway, and so then I'm starting to reflect, and I'm like, do I actually want to be living in Greece? And I started to realize how challenging Greece is. Like, I love Greece, but it is super challenging. It is a lot on my nervous system living here, because if we look at it from a driving perspective, I'm on the other side of the car. I'm on the other side of the road. Going to the supermarket, you can't just duck into the supermarket and grab what you need. If you need like packaged stuff, because everything's in Greek, right? It's in the language Greek. So you have to Google translate everything. If I wanted to go in and buy a whole heap of baking stuff, I literally have to Google translate absolutely everything to make sure that I'm buying the right stuff, to make sure I'm buying the right spices. So, you can't just duck into the supermarket and have a quick shopping experience. It takes a lot. If I want to go into town, there's a lot of one-way streets. So I have to always make sure that I have a map on, because when I'm driving, I don't want to go down the wrong street. And then if my map doesn't recalculate, like, oh my gosh, it creates a lot of anxiety for me, like driving here. So these are the things that I started to really observe in the difference in the countries. And the other thing that I was like, really missing is, like, I went to my dance class. Oh my God, I love my dance class. And if you've been following me, you will know that I share a lot about my dance classes. And I went to that and I was like, oh my gosh, my heart feels so full. Like, I miss this. I really miss this. And then, one of the girls was talking about, she was just started doing some boxing classes, and it was a women's class. I was like, yes, I would love to do that. And I don't have access to those things here. I don't have the float tanks. I don't have the saunas. I don't have my kahuna massages. I don't have, my dance classes. I don't have gym classes. There's gym classes here, but everything is in Greek. Like, if I go to a gym class, everything is spoken in Greek. And that's what happens when you're in a foreign country, right? But it's these things that you don't realize when you choose to go and live in a foreign country. I was reflecting, I'm like, fuck, I really went all in. I couldn't have just moved to the States where it's English. I had to move to a country where, like, it would have been 10 times harder than moving anywhere else that was an English speaking country. But that's just me. I always fucking send it, right? And so as I was in Queensland, I was really like feeling into how I was feeling and these things that are important to me. And even just being able to go for a walk along the water, there's a concrete path And the part, you can walk for as long as your heart is content. You can walk for hours if you want to. I don't have those luxuries here on this island that I live. Maybe I might in the mainland, or maybe I might in Thessaloniki, but here on this island, like my walking strip along the beach in the village that I live is literally like a 10-15 minute walk. Like it's not concrete. You're walking along the road. And yeah, it's different, right? And so I started to like think about like all of the things and the life that I live in Greece. And yes, it's magical and I love it, but is it actually helping me thrive? And I don't know if it is. I think Greece is a beautiful place to come and rest and recharge for a few months, but I don't know if it's the place that I want to actually live in for a long period of time. And so I started to realize that all of these things that I was starting to tap back into that I really enjoyed, that I clearly took for granted when I lived there, how much those things helped me regulate my nervous system. And since I've been in Greece, my sleeping has been so terrible. I remember having conversations with different people and saying how, like, I really think that my body clock is really struggling to adapt to the time zone here. And they're like, oh, how long have you been here for? And I'm like, oh, like 8 months, 9 months, nearly 12 months. And people will be like, you should have adapted by now. And I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like I've adapted. Like, I feel like I cannot sleep very well at all here. I would go to bed, I'd try midnight and then I would still be awake at 2 a.m. And then I'd have to set my alarm and be up at 6, ready to start a coaching call at 7 a.m. Or I would go, okay, well, I'll try and have a nap through the day. So then I'd have a nap through the day, but then I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. Like, I just feel like my sleep has not been, it hasn't been great since I've been in Greece. And honestly, it's been like that from day one. And if you are close to me, you will have known that, because I will have shared that conversation with you, that I've really struggled to sleep properly here. And like, I'd really noticed this when I went to America. And I think I mentioned this in that episode when my lessons from going to America. When I went to America, I literally was sleeping on my girlfriend's blow up mattress, and I was like out like a light, sleeping amazing. So I'm like, there's something about the ozone layer that's here, I guess, that it makes me not sleep very well. And so I'm just gathering all of this information right now of like, is Greece really serving me? Is it not serving me? What's important to me? What are my values? What are my priorities? And do I have those things that are here in Greece? And so I was like reflecting on all of this, and I was like, oh shit, maybe I think I want to move back. Anyway, in between all of those like little moments of me having these little breakthroughs, I have a phone call from the lawyer, and she says to me, so I found out about your visa. I actually can't submit your visa unless you're back in the country. So when are you coming back? And I was like, well, I can't come back until, at this date, it was like the 4th or something, after I was hosting my event. And she was like, okay, well, you need to be back like no later than that, right? You need to be back before your visa expires, and I can't submit these documents until you are back in the country. So I was like, okay, well, that's going to throw out my going to California for Christmas, doing the road trip for my birthday, and it looks like now I'm going to have to be in Greece for December and January, the 2 months that I didn't want to be there. But I'm like trusting and surrendering that everything is supposed to unfold exactly as it's supposed to. So I'm like, okay, it is what it is. I'll make sure that I'm back in the country. She's like, great. So then that throws a spanner in the works. And so in this same moment, I'm like, do I even want to apply for the visa? Do I want to live in Greece? Like, I don't know what I want to do. What the fuck do I want to do? And this is like, I feel like this is the first time in a long time, probably since 2022, that I am feeling this way, that I don't have clarity, that I am unclear of what the path is. Like, I feel like I'm very good at trusting my intuition, and I see the path, and I can follow it, and I can, take the step, and I see the next step, But this is the first time probably since 2022, before I went to Costa Rica and sat with ayahuasca, that I have felt this. So I know that I'm on the verge of something really big right now because of what I'm experiencing and how I'm feeling. But it's also just new levels of deep trusting and surrendering to whatever is unfolding. So are you following me? You feel like this has been a whirlwind of a conversation? Like this literally, like reliving this is like bringing back the anxiety in my body because it was crazy. So I jump in the car and I drive back to Bendigo. Sorry, before I do that, the day before I drive back, my cousin rings me and she says, I'm just letting you know that my grandma passed away early hours this morning. And I was like, oh my gosh, my heart breaks. Like, oh, we've had another death in the family. Like, this is hard and horrible and it's part of life, but yet, fuck, it's hard. So, I'm sending my love and condolences. And I said, I'm coming home and I'll be back, blah, blah, blah. She's like, yeah, no worries. So then I do the drive back. And as I'm driving back, I'm like deep in, like, I feel like I'm in a portal, honestly. And I'm like, what do I want? Like, how do I want life to be? Like, what about my visa? What about this? Like, what about that? What about my business? Like, do I even really like the online coaching space anymore? Like, what do I want? And like, I'm just like this, it felt like I was driving and I was like collecting all of this data. And it was just like, almost like just in this season of collecting data and seeing how it landed and not having to make a decision or do anything with it right now. And that was kind of where I was at, just really observing and just seeing how I felt with everything. So then I get back and my grandma is supposed to start her treatment, but it gets postponed. So she doesn't start her treatment. So she's not feeling great again. And then we have the funeral. So I had the funeral on the Friday. Yeah, the funeral on the Friday. Saturday, I was driving to Melbourne, where I was then going to host my 2-day event with my clients that were coming for the Salon Mastery event. So we hosted that 2-day event. And then I was flying out. So that was Sunday, Monday. And then I flew out on Tuesday. Back to Greece. Like, what the fuck? What a whirlwind. In all of that, I also get a message from Europcar, which is the company, saying that I have copped an infringement notice, which apparently was me being on my phone, which I don't believe I was like on my phone as such, but I didn't have a phone holder. And so I had the map up and I had my phone sitting on my knee pretty much most of the way. And that's not acceptable, obviously. So I also copped an infringement. So that's fun for me. So waiting for that to arrive in the mail. And then, literally like flew back, did the event. That was amazing and just so heart-filling, and I loved it, and I loved being in person. I loved meeting the women in real life. I had women fly from New Zealand, women fly from WA, women from Victoria. It was incredible. It was so much fun, and it really made me realize how much I miss doing in-person things as well. So I jump on the plane and I'm heading back to Australia with no idea what the situation is with my visa or anything like that. The lawyer rings me once I land and she's like, I need you to come in. We need to go over the documents. I'm like, yep. So I go into the office, sort out the documents. And then she's like, today is the last final cutoff for us to submit these documents. I'm like, great, love that for us. So we submit the documents on the Friday and now it's just a waiting game. So it can take up to a minimum of 3 months, but up to like however long that they need. So some people have told me that they've had to wait 12 months for their visa to come through. So I can't leave the country until that comes through. So I'm somewhat stuck here, whether I want to be or not. But I think that that's actually really beautiful because it's giving me an opportunity. It's winter, and I feel like the winter season is matching my mood and my energetic field right now. And it's really giving me an opportunity to delve deep into my spiritual practices and really get some deep clarity, really let go of what is not serving me right now. Get really clear on like, what are the values? What are my priorities? How do I want to do business? I think being in the event room really sparked something in me. And, we can go deep and wide so quickly in an event space, or in person, I should say. And like, I love that. Like, that brings me so much joy. And to see the transformation and the energetic shifts that happen, I'm like, I think I want to do more of that. I really want to start to bring more of that in person. And, community is something that's starting to feel really big for me at the moment. Feel like I've been in a bit of an isolation season for a couple of years now, and I've been really okay with that. But now I feel like I'm ready. I'm ready to kind of like emerge out as like this butterfly and like, really start to build out my community to even bigger. And I think in person like really allows that opportunity to really build deeper, closer relationships. So I'm really in this season right now of like sitting with my journal, sitting at my altar, lighting my sage, working with my crystals, letting everything fall away. I feel like I'm showering multiple times a day at the moment because it's like such a cleansing process for me to like really just cry and let it all fall through and just like give back to Mama Earth. And I'm feel like I'm really fueling my body with like wholesome foods, because we're in winter, so we're curries and soups, these beautiful foods that are really nurturing as I am literally going through and experiencing an ego death right now and figuring out what do I want this to look like. So there was a part of me that was joking, with my friends here. And he was like, what's going on? I feel like you're thinking about maybe moving back to Australia. And I was like, yeah, I think there is a part of me. And anyway, we were chatting and he was like, why? Like why? And I said, well, I miss my saunas. I miss my float tanks. I miss, being able to go to a reformer class that's in English. I miss my dance classes. I miss my crystal shops, like I miss all these things. And he said to me, are those things a priority though? Like, is that really worth moving back for? And I was like, yes, they are a priority. Like they are top tier for me. And he was like, really? Why? And I said, because over the years, I have learned so much about myself, right? And I have learned what I need in order to regulate my nervous system. And, when you are doing deeper inner work with women that trust you and they're investing, good money to come into your spaces, it's important that I'm showing up the best version that I possibly can be. And that means that it's my responsibility to make sure that my nervous system is regulated. And these are all the tools over the years that I have found that help me be regulated. And so he was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, like I don't think I realized how much those things I'm missing, and I think that when I first got here, there was so much excitement and hype and, trying to figure everything out. But I think over the year of being here, these things have compounded. And I think my health has deteriorated a little bit because I don't have access to those things that I would normally have in Australia to help me stay regulated. So I don't know what the future holds. I'm deep in this transition right now of really trusting and surrendering of what everything is supposed to be and how it's all supposed to fall into place and how it will fall into place. And I'm really allowing myself this next 3 months, which is potentially how long the visa is going to take, to really anchor in, like, what do I want? And allow everything that needs to fall away to fall away. So we will wait and see what this all looks like moving forward, But one thing that I also want to touch on is the main reason that I went to Australia. And the main reason that I went to Australia was to spread my grandfather's ashes. And so this part of my trip was so healing, deeply healing, actually, because I'm going to get emotional. Because I think I was able to heal parts of the trauma with my parents. I truly understand why they are the way that they are, and I accept that and I hold compassion because they're doing what's best for them in their eyes, and I get that and I understand that. But there's still that little part inside of me, that little girl that is longing. Is that the word? Longing for, that relationship with her parents. And I know that that could never be, because I made my choices, and my choices meant that I could never have a relationship with my family. That's just like, I've made my bed, I have to lay in that. But there is definitely a part that pulls on my heart for sure. And so my dad had actually asked my nan and said, how does Annie plan on getting to where we were spreading the ashes? It was about an hour and a half away in the car. And my nan said, oh, I'm not sure. And he said, well, there's a spare seat in the car. So if you want to let her know, she can come with us if she needs a ride. Anyway, so my nan passes that on to me, and she's like, you do with that whatever you want, Annie. I'm just the messenger. And I'm like, I was really shocked and surprised actually by the gesture and the offer that my dad had made. Because, this time last year when my pop passed away, I felt like he couldn't even look me in the eye when he was talking to me, let alone like offer to give me a ride, right? So I was like, wow, like there's obviously been some shifts that have happened in his life. I don't know what they are or anything like that. But to see this different version of him showing up, I was like, wow, okay. And so I sat with like, do I want to sit in the car with my parents after being estranged for 17 years? Like, oh, awkward. Fuck. Do I want to do that or do I not? I don't know. Anyway, I sat with it and I was like, you know what? Like, this is a great opportunity for some deeper healing. And, you don't know how much you've healed until you actually are put in situations that you're trying to heal from. And because I don't have a lot to do with them, it's easy to say, yeah, I've healed through that. But then when you're actually put to the test and you're in front of them, how you react and how you show up is really going to show how healed you really are. And so as much as the little girl inside me wanted to run away and be like, no, I'm not getting in that fucking car. You don't approve of my life. You have conditions on your love. I'm not doing it. I'm not putting myself in that situation. Also, simultaneously, the adult version of me, the healed version of me came through and said, this is a great opportunity for you to lean in and for you to do deeper levels of healing that might get to be done. This opportunity has presented itself for a reason, and this is your chance to choose to lean in or to choose to continue to run with the old story that you keep playing out, right? And so I, sat with this and I was like, no, like I'm not going to be the person that is scared to face the fears, scared to, sit in the car and do new levels of healing. And I think that there was a big part of me that was so scared to show up as me, as the version that I am, because I know that I'm not the daughter that they had hoped for. And so I feel like there was this part of me that didn't want to get in the car because I already felt like I had let them down so much that what if I got in that car as this adult version of me and they think that I'm even worse? What if they're like, oh my gosh, we made the right choice of like, making sure that she's not in our life. And I was so caught up in like, oh, what if I don't speak right? Or, like I swear now and you're not allowed to swear. I swear, and like, what if I say something and they judge me on, what I say? And I was so caught up in my head about what the car ride was going to look like. And I had to catch myself and I had to be like, no, Annie, you are perfect the way that you are. And if they're not willing to accept you for the version that you are, your true, authentic self, then that's on them and that's not on you. And so I said to my nan, I am happy to jump in the car, and I am really grateful that, my dad's offered that. So I stay the night before at my grandma's house, and then my parents come and pick us up the next morning. And I'd already had an encounter with my mum beforehand. So now I was meeting my dad again. So I just showed up as myself and I was like, I I am who I am. Like it is this. So we get in the car and we head off, and I'm in the back seat with my mum, and my nan and dad are in the front seat. And we stop, I get fuel, get gas, and then he pulls into McDonald's, and I was like, oh, I'm so happy that we're getting a coffee. I was actually keen to get a coffee, but I didn't want to be that person that was like, can I get a coffee? Anyway, and so he orders me a coffee, and I went to give him money, and he's like, nah, it's all right. And I was like, wow, okay, thank you. And so then me being me just, naturally takes it another step further. And I'm like, oh, sweet, you can pay for my lunch, because we were also going to the pub for lunch after we spread Pop's ashes. And he was like, no, I draw the line there. I'm not buying your lunch. And I was like, okay. I was like, fuck, I pushed it too far. Anyway, so that was really nice. That's the first coffee that my dad has bought for me as an adult, which is like, it's so small and it's so simple, but like, it's actually like a really big deal. Anyway, so that's all fine. We drive up, and the conversation in the car was pretty good. Like, I have to admit, there was an ease in the car. There was no drama. It was really quite good. My dad did a lot of reminiscing of just fishing stories and things that he shared with his dad, and then we finally got there, and everyone gets out of the car. There's like 20 of us. My brother's there with his wife and kids. My sister's there with her husband and kids. And, I'm watching everyone around the river. My auntie's there with her children and then their children. There was a huge group of us. And there was definitely a part in my heart that felt really sad. That felt really sad that I'm not a part of their lives and that they're not a part of my life. I have nephews that are growing up and they don't know me. I don't know them. And I also know that this was a choice that I made, but it still does play on my heart for sure. And, just everyone being really kind and really nice. And, I feel like we all have done a lot of healing, whether we want to admit it or not, but just the way that everyone interacted with each other, there was no isolating anybody or making them feel like they didn't belong there while we spread my grandfather's ashes, or there was none of that. There was just, we were all there for the same reason, and everyone could put their differences aside and do what they needed to do. Oh my goodness, I didn't think I was going to get this emotional about this. And so that was something that definitely played heavy, I guess, on my heart, but also truly knowing that I wouldn't live this life that I live right now if I didn't make those choices, if I didn't choose me. That's really what it came down to, is that choosing me did mean that I had to sacrifice other things, and that was having a relationship with my parents, having a relationship with my siblings, sacrificing having a relationship with their children. And that's the choice that I made, and I am okay with that. But there's still a little bit of pain, I guess, in my heart about the things that I do miss out on, and the things that they miss out on as well with what's going on in my life. So we get to the part where we're going to spread the ashes, and we go down and the ashes get spread in the water, and I'm standing next to my auntie, and these butterflies just like fly over, and she's like, no one would get that, Annie. Like, you and I are the only ones that would get that. And she's like, I went around the corner before to do a wee behind the tree. That's typical Aussie style. And she was like, there's 3 butterflies, and she's like, I knew that was Pop. And I was like, wow, I love that, And so as we're chatting, these butterflies are flying over again, and we both like just look at each other and we're like, yes, it's Pop. Like, we know he's here with us. And it was just a beautiful send off. And then we went and had lunch, and, we're all just looking around the table, and we're like, we're all here because of Pop, because of Nan and Pop. They, had children, which then they went on to have children, and they've gone on to have children. And, without Pop, we wouldn't be sitting around this table. And it was so beautiful to have the family all together, and, you know, to realize that we can live different lives and still we can live different lives, and we can still be civil, and we can still do what we need to do for the same reason, right? Like when we're all showing up for the same reason, we can do that. And so that was my experience of returning back to Australia. I warned you at the start that it was an emotional roller coaster, and you've gone on this journey with me. So thank you for sitting here and listening to 6 hours combined into an hour. 6 weeks combined into an hour podcast episode. But there was so many lessons, and there was so much deep healing that really occurred. And I really feel like I'm still, like I said earlier, I'm still integrating, and I'm still working out, like, what does this next season look like for me? And it's okay that I don't have the answers. And so I also want to remind you too that whatever season you're in, maybe you're in a growth season, maybe you're in a season where you don't really know what is next. I really invite you just to lean in and to just trust that whatever is supposed to come through will come through in the divine timing, right? Like, it's your job to really just trust yourself. Trust that you've got you, yeah? Tap into your spiritual practices that help you. Tap into the things that help you regulate your nervous system, like I shared with you earlier, the things that help me. Tap into those things. Do the things that bring you joy while you're navigating any chaos that might be happening in your life, because everything is happening for you, and it is here to help you step into your highest self. Like, literally, like, I know that 6 weeks was so challenging, and it's been a long time since I have been at capacity. And I honestly felt like I was almost at capacity. I felt like the stove was on, the pot was boiling, and no one was turning the pot off. Like, that was how it felt. And I also know that it was exactly what was supposed to happen, because I need new levels of letting go in order to reach the next level that I want to step into. And that's just part of evolution, right? We have to experience death to be reborn. You can't have one without the other. So whatever season it is that you're in right now, just hold tight, stick to your spiritual practices, do the things that bring you joy, and trust that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I promise you that. And be around people that can support you, whether that's mentorship, whether that's therapy, whether that's, really close friend, whatever it is. Allow yourself to be supported as well, because that was also what I needed to do. I have a beautiful sisterhood in a mastermind. There's 5 of us all together in this mastermind, and I jumped on this call and I just burst into tears this was before I came back to Australia, and I said, I feel like no one's asking me how I am. I feel like I'm holding so much space for everybody else, and yet I feel so alone right now. And these beautiful women just like poured so much love into me and were like, we see you, you've got this. And that phone call was like so powerful. So I really, really invite you to also make sure that you are allowing yourself to be supported, and you're calling upon those people that are here to support you, because you're not supposed to do this life alone. I love you. Thank you so much for tuning into this full episode. If you've got to this end, I know it was a lot, but it was really important for me to share, the behind the scenes of like trying to navigate life and unexpected challenges, and running a business and fulfilling delivery for your clients and marketing, and then also having your own little breakdown, right? Like, it's important to me that you see all of it, that you don't just see the highlight reel, because that is not what life is. And I never want to be that type of leader. So if you've got something out of today's episode, I would love, love, love so much to hear from you. So come and say hi. If you would like to deepen your work with me and be supported on whatever roller coaster ride you're going on or embarking on, then you will see in the show notes different ways that we can work together. So head there, you'll see whether there's the application for the Evolve Salon Mastermind, or I have my spaces open for private mentorship. So you can fill out the application and we would kick off in the new year. So if you feel desired to be supported deeper in the work that you're doing and let go of those things that are holding you back, and really, tap into all the tools and the strategies that I've learned along the way, then here's your invitation to come and join me inside my world. It would be an absolute honor to support you into you being your most authentic self, your most healed version of yourself. Have a beautiful day wherever you are in the world, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye for now.